Hello and welcome back once again to After the Credits. So, another fairly new movie, finally. There's still a couple more I want to see that have been out for a little while, but I'm trying to do some of the newer stuff because newer stuff and really old stuff seems to be what gets the most views, so I'm trying to go back and forth between the two. But I will get to the other stuff at some point, just not sure when. So, this movie opened a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, something like that, and that is The Woods. Or, no wait, they changed the title of it. Blair Witch. Yeah, that's right. So, we get another Blair Witch film. Finally, after all these years. Because that's what we needed, right? So I remember seeing the preview a while back for a movie titled The Woods. And in that preview, they made no real reference to the Blair Witch or anything like that. I don't even really remember it being depicted as a found footage movie. But it was. And apparently that was kind of a ploy by the people making the movie, that they wanted it to appear at like Sundance Film Festival and a couple other places without people knowing it was a sequel to Blair Witch, and just kind of let people judge their reactions based on the movie itself. And then once it kind of got its reaction from that and the cat was out of the bag, then they changed the title to Blair Witch. And for those of you who don't know, there was always going to be a third sequel to the Blair Witch. It just didn't quite pan out the way they originally planned it. So they originally did the Blair Witch Project, which is the found footage movie. Then they did a more Hollywood-style film where it wasn't found footage, it was actually characters, there was moving cameras, things like that. But it did involve some found footage, but it was mostly of what had happened previously, that when they were out camping in the woods and they came back to this guy's house and were reviewing the footage and like weird things start to happen. And that was Blair Witch 2, Book of Shadows, which I actually kind of liked, but it gets panned a lot by people because it just didn't have the same magic as the first one. It almost could have stood on its own as a movie if it didn't have any ties to the Blair Witch Project and been fairly decent, but because everyone went into it expecting another found footage movie and they didn't get it, well, that kind of dumped that one down the drain. Had the Blair Witch 2 done good, they had planned on a third Blair Witch film, which would have been a prequel to the first one that explained the origin of the Blair Witch and the legend around her, and kind of went from there, and then we might have gotten a fourth one in the series, which probably would have been what this film is. But since the second Blair Witch tanked, that third one never came about. Then Hollywood got kind of oversaturated with found footage films, everyone got a little bit tired of them, now they're kind of making a comeback. And now we get another Blair Witch film. So this one is more of a direct sequel to the first one, the Blair Witch Project, than it has to do with anything else in the series. Almost like they're kind of trying to pull a X-Men and kind of write out that the second one ever happened. But at the same time, like I said, I kind of like the second one for what it was, even if it wasn't tied to the Blair Witch, but it was. So this one is about a group of college students who are, I guess, documentary film class students, whatever. One of them is the brother of the girl from the group in the first one. The girl and the two guys that went out, got lost and all that, and they found their footage. This is that girl's brother, and he looks at all the footage of the Blair Witch and Burkittsville and all that online because he has this feeling that his sister's still out there somewhere because they never found her body. It's possible she's still alive after all these years. So he's reviewing a bunch of footage, and he sees one that he thinks depicts his sister's. He convinces his group of friends to go out in the woods with him and look for her. So they're like, okay, we'll make it part of our documentary film class thing. We'll film it all. Yeah, because that worked out real good for your sister and her friends. So they go in the woods looking for his sister, but first they meet up with the person who posted the footage online because he's going to take them out in the woods and show them exactly where he supposedly found this tape at. He convinces them, I'm kind of doing a film thing myself, I'd like to tag along with you guys if that's okay, because it's safer in numbers, just in case something happens. I'm not out in the woods by myself, I got other people with me. And they're kind of reluctant at first, but after a while they're like, okay, whatever. So they travel out in the woods, he shows them where he found the tape, and they kind of scout around the area looking for this house that is supposedly depicted in the film that was never found by the police, even though they searched the whole woods. So they go around looking for this house, can't find it, so they find a clearing, and they're like, okay, we're going to camp out for the night. They start to hear noises in the woods, they get up to investigate, there's nothing. Okay, let's go back to sleep. Could have just been trees falling. Could have been coyote, a bear, whatever. Let's just sleep and we'll get headed out in the morning. So morning rolls around and there's all the little Blair Witch crosses hanging over their tents. So they're freaked out and they're like, screw this, let's just go back home. You know, there's something weird going on here. Let's not put any of our lives at risk. So as they're traveling back through the woods, they find out that, spoilers, this guy that's tagging along with them did it to get a reaction out of them. And they're like, yeah, we're done with you. Get the hell out of here. So they send him off, him and his girlfriend who's been tagging along with them too. The rest of them are like, okay, well, let's just try and find our way back to the car. We'll come out some other time and, you know, another day and look for your sister and do more with this. So they're walking and walking and walking. Eventually they end up finding their way back to their campsite. They walked in circles for several hours. Around that time, the guy and his girlfriend reemerged from the woods looking really disheveled. They're like, when was the last time you saw us? And they're like, just a couple hours ago. He's like, we've been walking in these woods for days, and you guys look exactly like the last time we saw you. So he kind of panics, and he's like, this is a bad sign, you know, everyone's going to die. I don't want to be a part of this, and he takes off running into the woods, and ends up leaving his girlfriend behind because she wants to stay with the group now because she's scared. So they all go to bed again. They camp out for another night because they got to wait for sunlight to travel out of the woods. They wake up the next morning, and there's even more of the little stick men around. So now they're pissed off thinking, okay, this guy and his girlfriend are fucking with them. They're like, you know, fuck you guys, we're out of here. So at that point, spoilers, the guy's girlfriend kind of dies, and it's kind of fucked up how she dies. Because as they wake up and all these sticks are around, they notice one has her hair on it. And one girl goes, you did this? Again, you're responsible for this? She goes, I'm tired of your shit, and she breaks it in half. Again, spoilers. And when she breaks it in half, the bitch's back just snaps, and she collapses into a pile of shit on the ground, basically. And she's like coughing up blood and shit. So they're all freaked out and they all take off into the woods running. It's almost instantly night again because they're all lost in the woods. So they all manage to reconvene and they're all looking around for each other. One of them gets separated again and eventually you see her get taken by something. The remaining two, the guy who's been looking for his sister and his girlfriend, I guess, who's been doing this documentary film thing, managed to find the house. And she's like, we can't go in there, we can't go in there, you know, this is bad. He goes, I have to go in there, I know she's in there. So he goes in looking for his sister. Eventually the girl sees something in the woods and runs in the house for safety, or to find him basically, and like, let's get the hell out of here. Then they find out they're both trapped in the house. It kind of plays out with the Blair Witch sneaking up on them and him realizing the whole standing in the corner thing is because the Blair Witch can't take you if you're not looking at her, which doesn't make sense because everyone else she's taken, she snuck up behind him and took him. So how any of this makes sense, I don't know. So they're looking at the wall, and then he starts talking, and she thinks he's talking to her, and then she quickly realizes that he's not talking to her, so she's like, who are you talking to? And then he just like turns around, and then he's gone. She has her camera in hand, and she's using it like the viewfinder to kind of look behind her, and again, realizing that if you're not looking at the Blair Witch, she can't get you, but she also doesn't like being seen by the camera. We actually get a short glimpse of the Blair Witch at this point, because, like I said, when she goes to look in the viewfinder, the Blair Witch is kind of behind her and then darts off. Honestly, if this is what the Blair Witch is going to be, I honestly wish this film didn't exist, because she looks about like one of the fucking aliens from Signs. And I'm not even kidding, she's like really long and skinny and deformed and nakedish with no gender specifics. Like I said, if you see the aliens from Signs, that's about what this looked like. We always see it at a quick glance. It's always running off. It's always at a distance in the woods or something. I thought they would have done more with finally revealing what the Blair Witch looked like, or just not reveal what she looks like. So the girl tries to make her way out of the house using the viewfinder, and again, spoilers, she doesn't make it because this is all found footage shit again, so somebody found these tapes somewhere and posted them online or gave them to the police, whatever. So she doesn't make it either. End of the movie. So yeah, overall, other than being in direct succession to the Blair Witch Project as far as being a found footage film and following what happened after that original story, this really didn't add a whole lot to the mythos. I mean, it explained a few things and expanded on a few things. Like, it explains why the little stick figures are represented the way they are, more about who the Blair Witch was and how she died and things like that. It goes into a story about the other house from the first one, which they did find, and they know that house exists, where the Blair Witch supposedly took her victims. But in this one, they say it was owned by an old man who said that he tortured children there because he heard the Blair Witch's voice telling him to do it. And I don't really remember that being the case from the first one. I vaguely remember a story about a guy who lived in the woods, but I don't know, it's been so long since I've seen it. It might just be retelling the whole story that we already know. But I didn't really remember that part. I kind of remember something about the Blair Witch living in the woods, but I could be wrong. So yeah, it doesn't really do a whole lot for the mythos. Like I said, we get to see what the Blair Witch looks like. It didn't need to happen either. It was more of a mystery not seeing the Blair Witch. Yeah, so what would I give it as far as a star rating? You know, I really hate to do it, but I can't give everything I'm reviewing this week a 2.5. And sadly, again, I enjoyed 31 more than I enjoyed this. So I gotta give this one a 2. Like I said, it wasn't a bad film. It kind of fit with the first one. But at this point, like I said, the whole shaky cam found footage thing has really been overdone. I know it's sort of making a comeback, but I've seen it done better in other films. Like, this camera shakes so much and goes in and out of focus so much. It's like, I know it's supposed to be found footage, but you can do it and still have a film that you can follow. There was so much going on as far as like the camera shaking and things like that, that it was just really hard to follow the story. It kept kind of taking me out of it every time it would like get real jumbly and like go out of focus and things like that. It's just like, come on, man. The only thing that really changed between this one and the first one was they updated digital technology, so occasionally you'll get like little digital static flashes between cuts in the tape, as opposed to actual tapes where they use like the static cut between them, or just blacks out and comes back on. This one actually had like a little blip in between each one, but yeah, I don't know. If this had been the original sequel to Blair Witch, it probably would have been fine, but because found footage has been overdone and has been done better, I can't give this a middle of the road. Because even though it was a middle of the road film, I've seen it done better. For example, the Blair Witch Project did it better. So yeah, I'm going to give this one a 2. If you like the first Blair Witch, watch it. You'll probably enjoy it. Probably better than the original second film, Book of Shadows. But honestly, for a third film, I probably would have just liked to have seen the original origin story they planned to do back with the original third film. Maybe they're going to lead up to it now that this one seems to be doing pretty well. We might have that to look forward to still, but otherwise this just kind of seems like, remember the first one? Let's reboot it, but instead of just calling it a reboot, let's make it a continuation of the same story, like the next day type of thing, as opposed to that other sequel we did. So it gets a 2 from me. If you like Blair Witch, check it out. If you like found footage movies, check it out. Other than that, nothing much more to say about it. So that's it for this episode. Again, as always, thank you guys for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, share the video. Links are in the description. And until next time, we'll see you after the credits.